Having healthy arts programs are vital to the culture, property value, and well-being of your community. So why do we cut arts programs first? Community theater, musical productions, and art galleries feed our soul, but slicing line items for arts is becoming common. How can we cut what we love? The arts in the bullseye on Counterpoint with Gerard McClendon. How can we cut what we love? Art is our way of expressing and consuming humanity, but arts programs everywhere are feeling the sting of budget cuts. Tell me what you think. 844-877-9311 is my phone number, and hit me at Gerard MC on Twitter and Facebook. At the Counterpoint, I've got Libby Chu from the Indiana Arts Commission. I also have Lorelei Weimer from Indiana Dunes Tourism and Micah Pollock from Indiana University. Welcome to the Counterpoint. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get right into this. So, many times people think about the arts. If it's missing, we feel it. If it's present, we feel it, but sometimes we don't have a deep regard for it. I want to first go around the table and talk about your chief functions at your respective organizations, and then we'll talk about why cutting art can be so detrimental to a community. Libby Chu, let me start with you. What is your chief function at the Indiana Arts Commission?
As a commissioner, we're part of the overseeing board for the function and programming of the Indiana Arts Commission, which is a state arts agency that provides both technical assistance as well as funding to communities in the state of Indiana, not necessarily just arts organizations, but communities that want to have arts in their lives for the citizenry.
Okay, good. We're going to double back and talk about the citizenry later in the segment. Lorelei Weimer from Indiana Dunes Tourism. Chief function. What is your chief function? What's the chief function, I should say, of the Indiana Dunes?
Our main objective is to bring visitors to Porter County and get them to extend their stay. So we are specialized economic development for our area. So I like to say we put a positive light on our destination and get people excited to come and visit us.
Excellent. And I've got Micah Pollock, the Indiana University professor who's been on Counterpoint before. What is your level of research and what do you teach at Indiana University, Professor Pollock?
Thanks, Jared. I teach economic history, and in that economic history, we focus a lot on Northwest Indiana. So we learn a lot about how Northwest Indiana has changed, which is quite significantly in the last 50, 60 years or so. And part of my research focuses on the regional economy here in Northwest Indiana and ways that we can improve it.
Okay, so economic history, extending people's tourist stays in Northwest Indiana, and the importance of the arts. I got to get right into this because we have a brand new administration and a new president now. There's been rumors that the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, and the National Endowment for the Humanities may be witnessing some cuts. And so a person who doesn't really care about the arts might say, doesn't matter, wasted line item, get rid of it anyway. Libby Chu, why are the arts so important to a community?
I want to start with a very basic point that rarely anybody notices, which is the state seal of Indiana. Somebody has to design it. The design itself is an art form. Secondly, if you look at the seal, it shows the agricultural history of Indiana. The woodmen, the bluegrass, there's a bison, and the mountains. Essentially, the native land of Indiana. The whole concept that art is for the elite is placed on that, superimposed on what Indiana is, and the country as well.
So it's not just for the elite?
No, it isn't. As I said, you look at a seal that was designed, art form, and you look at what's contained in that art form. It's the natural state of Indiana.
Lorelei, getting people to come to Northwest Indiana and to stay in Northwest Indiana and to witness the magnificence of the region. How is art important to that particular manifestation?
Well, one of the things we found through our research is visitors go to a destination and they want to experience things that they can't get in the backyard. So one of the things we like about art is it's unique, it's different to each artist. So if you're able to incorporate that into your destination, you're giving people a reason to come to see something different that they can't see in their own backyard. We just incorporated art into the visitor center this past summer in celebration of our 30th anniversary. We have these wonderful outdoor murals that magnify the native animals that you'll see in our area. So we recognize how important it is, so much so that we added it to our visitor center.
So you believe that the arts are definitely a factor in tourism?
Absolutely, and definitely a factor in community development. You know, I know the city of Valparaiso has sculptures in the city of Valparaiso, so people are going on the sculpture walk. So it's a critical component in terms of that enhancing that community.
Yeah. You know, many times we look at things in terms of ones and zeros. It's either on or it's off. It's either making a dollar or it's losing a dollar, or it's breaking even. Professor Micah Pollock, are the arts a factor when it comes to the economy? So often we say, that's those bohemians over there. That's those artsy people who put together stuff that no one really cares about. But is that true? Is there a direct effect on the economy if there's great art being produced and consumed, if there's tourists that will increase to the region because of art? Do we find that there's a factor when art exists economically?
Oh, absolutely. But it's very hard to measure is the challenge. And I can give you one example. Most of us are familiar with, here in Northwest Indiana, we have those South Shore posters that you'll see in local businesses and throughout all of the community. And those were originally created, and the modern ones are inspired by the Works Progress Administration in the 1930s and 1940s as an effort to get out of the Great Depression as part of the New Deal. And so the legacy of the artwork that was made 80 years ago is still around and is part of Northwest Indiana.
Gross metropolitan product, that's something that you study.
Yes.
Right. And
yeah.
tell us what that means, and then I'm going to tie in art with that.
Okay, yeah. So gross metropolitan product is like GDP or gross domestic product for the nation, but for our local Northwest Indiana region.
Products created.
Yeah,
and
so the value of the economic goods and services produced in Northwest Indiana, and just like GDP at the national level misses a lot of things, our gross metropolitan product, as inclusive as it is, tends to miss a lot of the value of the arts because it's not as tangible as, a can of soda being produced or something like that.
So let's look at it this way.
Yeah.
Let's look at the gross metropolitan product of Northwest Indiana. Let's use the scenario of it increasing over time. Is there a possibility, even though we can't measure what the arts might be giving to the region, if the gross metropolitan product is increasing in Northwest Indiana, might that equal more philanthropic dollars from benefactors, wealthy families, and businesses that may be more willing to give in that climate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would affect everything. I mean, if we have an area that has more arts and more nature and more quality of place, then you attract more businesses, you attract more workers, which then rolls into more income for the individuals living here, and the cycle just kind of repeats and grows.
Yeah.
I want to throw some numbers in to demonstrate the point.
Yeah.
And it has bearing on the fact that if the National Endowment for the Arts is eliminated, how it can have a negative effect on us. Currently, in this 2017 fiscal year, the contribution of the NEA to the Illinois Arts Commission budget is about 20%, for a total of the state budget of $4 million to return to the states of the citizenry. Mm-hmm. Now, from that $4 million, we have a compilation of about $32 million of donated money raised and matched to the grants that we give. Now, and that's not even counting what Micah is talking about, the multiplier effect. You go to a play, the surrounding businesses has an income, and that contributes to the area's economy. So this happens all through the state. And I think you notice starting at the beginning, I talk about the rural, which is my passion right now, the rural contributions. And yes, we may think that the rural people don't have access to the arts. However, if you talk about the contributor amount to the grants we give there, that's the economic contribution.
That's a good point because, and wow, this segment is going so fast. There's so much I want to cover. I'm glad you brought that up because I think about The Wizard of Oz from time to time. I get a little teary-eyed every time I watch it. I'm beholden to the Judy Garland version of it.
Yes.
You know, and when they colorized it.
Yes.
And I actually think I'm there, you know, when I watch that. And aren't there ties to the Wizard of Oz in Valparaiso, Indiana, I believe?
It used to be in Chesterton.
Used
They
to be
used to have the Wizard of Oz Festival, and they no longer do.
They know. Okay, and what was the tie there? Was it because there was a co-writer or something?
No, there actually, it was really interesting. The lady, her name's June Nelson. I just forgot her first name, but Jean Nelson.
Oh, yes.
It was in the early 80s, and there was an economic downturn in the 80s, and she wanted to just bring some positivity to Chesterton, and she had a little shop called the Wizard of Oz shop, and so she decided to have the Wizard of Oz festival, and little did she know that it would grow into this huge festival. And in terms of festivals, it was probably the largest economic return festival that we had in terms of what it brought to the town of Chesterton.
So you got tourism and you got art blended. I got about 2 minutes left in the segment. You look at Gene Shepard and the ties to the region and Hammond, Indiana, and is that A Christmas Story, right? And you know, and then you look at the most famous individual in the world, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, 2300 Jackson Street, the arts, tourism, economy. You know, it's too bad there's no Jackson 5 museum here. Maybe we can speak that into existence today. I want to close this segment, Libby, just in 20 seconds, Libby, let's say I'm a multimillionaire. How do you come to me and ask for money for the arts? How would you do that?
First question is, look around you and identify art that you take for granted. The window design. The building you're in, that's architecture. Your clothing, that is a visual arts design. And now let me talk about the children of the future. We have to build a future. That's where I would want your money to go, education.
Yeah. We got to continue here. Arts programs everywhere are feeling the sting of budget cuts. How can we cut what we love? Counterpoint continues. We'll be back in a moment. Tweet me, post on Instagram, or send me a message on Facebook. Let's start the conversation. Your voice is important on Counterpoint. Arts programs everywhere feeling the sting of budget cuts. How can we cut what we love? I've got John Kane joining us, Lorelei Weimer, and Dr. Micah Pollock in the second segment. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. I want to start with John Kane, South Shore Arts and the Northwest Indiana Symphony. John Kane, let's talk about funding. You've been doing this for a few years now. You've been a proponent and die-hard lover of the arts, fundraising. Why is it so difficult, John Kane?
Well, I think in one sense, people think of philanthropy and they think of social service, they think of health, they might think of education. I think they think of the arts as something extra beyond that, as maybe not a necessity. When we know that the arts, because it's been proven over and over again that they can contribute to so many aspects of life, quality of life being one of them, people want to live in a particular place because there are arts there that make it more enjoyable. And economic development is another. The Miller Beach Arts and Creative District in Gary has had enormous success in the last 5 years developing businesses along Lake Street in Miller. And when that part of Gary was really at a kind of a low ebb, and all of a sudden, because of that arts district, just doing some small little grassroots pop-up art exhibits, they all of a sudden spurred all the 18th Street Brewery coming in, Miller Bakery Cafe reopening, and all kinds of interesting little boutiques and a juice bar, you know, stuff that brings people in.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because when art is present, you love it. When it disappears, you definitely can feel the sphere of influence when it's gone. And let's go back to tourism, because I had jotted down some notes on my drive. Well, I didn't jot the notes down on my drive in, but as I was driving in, I was thinking about some things, jotted some notes down. My wife and I went to the Van Gogh exhibit at the Art Institute in Chicago about a year ago. There was a line around the building. It was unbelievable. People from all over the world were there to see that. The Terracotta Warriors were at the Field Museum. When it comes to popular art, it's like everyone gets that. You know, Justin Bieber, Beyonce, okay, I'm gonna pay $126 to go to the concert at the United Center. Okay, makes sense. That's for profit. But why is it difficult, and I open this to the three of you, why is it difficult sometimes to collect funds if it's for a not-for-profit endeavor? Why is that difficult? You know, Beyonce at the United Center makes sense, right? She's got the Beehive, huge audience. I'm gonna pay my $150, $300 if it's scalped. Sometimes it's hard to get 25 people in an art exhibit if the artist is unknown. So how do we change that? What do we do? We make more people aware? What do we do?
I think it's a combination. I think what we look at it from, you know, what brings people to our area is the Indiana Dunes, huge. And a lot of artists come to be a part of the Indiana Dunes in terms of painting them, photography. But when they get done with their day experience in the dunes and they're looking to extend their stay, that's when they're looking for the Memorial Opera House, the theater at Valparaiso University where there's performing arts. And so we look at the arts as an opportunity to get them to stay longer. Then when they go to the Memorial Opera House or Chicago Street Theater or the 4th Street Theater, they have to eat, right? Then they don't want to go home, so they want to stay in a hotel. So we look at it from an economic impact. It helps that visitors stay longer. And they're looking for, again, they're not always looking for the big Chicago performances. They're looking for the things that are really, truly local. So that's what we look at in terms of that economic impact.
Yeah. And let's look at economic impact, the locality of business as it pertains to art.
Sure, and I was just going to add too that I think one of the challenges is that sometimes it's hard to commodify the arts, and those big ticket items you mentioned have been commodified, right? You have to have a building that you go into and there's a line, or you have to pay to get a seat, but most of the art we experience around us is not like that, and I think that's part of the reason it's hard to put a price tag on it, is because it's more abstract, it's not as tangible. But like the others have said, it has a tremendous economic impact on the region and everything surrounding us.
This is open to the three of you. When budget cuts start to hurt the arts, who should care?
Well, everybody should.
Yeah.
care.
Everyone should
All of
care?
us.
Everyone.
Explain, John.
Well, because it does affect your quality of life, or it might affect your child's education. We started what we call the Every Kid program at South Shore Arts back in 1995, and it was just for little kids from Hammond, 4th graders, to come to the Art Center in Munster after school for art classes. There was this young boy who was 8 or 9 years old back then, named Diego Gonzalez, and he went to Irving Elementary, and he would walk. It was the dead of winter. He would walk all the way after school to Munster because he didn't have a parent who could drive him there, because it meant so much to him for him to have that opportunity to take art classes. And a couple of years ago, when it happened to be the 20th anniversary of the Every Kid program, I got an email from this Diego Gonzalez. Who's that? He said he'd been watching me for a while. And I thought, well, who are you? And he is such a positive outcome for me to talk about. He's gone on to have a big career as a body painter and airbrush artist, and he works throughout the country, New York, LA, and doing fashion shoots and music videos, and he's just a little kid. He was a little kid from Hammond, Indiana.
Yeah, Yeah. So everyone should care, and everyone is affected by those cuts.
Whether you believe it or not, too, because even if you don't care about the arts, a healthy economy and a growing economy requires a strong arts base. And so even if you want a job, you have to have a strong economy, and to have a strong economy, you have to have quality of place, and that's where the arts fit in.
Yeah. You know, think about traveling. And whenever you go on a long trip, it doesn't matter. If you're in your car after a hard day's work, the first thing you revert to is some sort of art. You get in the car and it's like, it's an involuntary function. You turn on that radio, or you go to Sirius XM satellite, or you go to your favorite musical station or talk radio station to consume some sort of art, be it rhetoric, talk radio, or be it news, which is still a production, an art form, NATAS, the National Arts Television Arts Society, and no matter who you are, you could be the most technically minded scientist, but it's just something about that art. You know, why do we like nice interiors in cars, as Libby mentioned earlier? Art. Why do we love looking at beautiful buildings, homes, skyscrapers? Art. So we're consuming it constantly. And so when budget cuts come down, from a federal level or from a local level, is it time to become activists at that point? Or do we just kind of lay in the cut, be silent, and just continue to just quietly call the people who we think are going to give to the arts programs?
Well, there are obviously some people who are more vocal about it than others.
Like John Kane.
Well, oh yes, I'm just such a mouthpiece for it. But you know, you mentioned great art in places, the art, and then the big blockbuster exhibits. But those we go to other countries because of their art, and empires produce that art. Governments produce that art, and we don't go to Rome or any place in Italy because they have a great military. They haven't had a great military since the fall of Rome. France, Napoleon. You know, that's the most recent. But honestly, we go there for the art. Yeah. And that was government-supported art. And the blockbuster that you saw in Chicago, where it was wrapped around the building, the Van Gogh, the first blockbuster was the King Tut.
Yes.
Back in the, oh my God, I love that so much.
Oh, I was there.
I was too.
Oh.
8 million people in this country saw that. And that was the first blockbuster, and it generated so much income for the cities that hosted it. And that had some government backing, and it also helped with diplomacy, because there was such a problem between the United States and Egypt at that time.
So, can I get Libby Chu, can I get John Kane, Micah Pollock, and Lorelei Weimer to come up with a business, let me get it right, a business, tourism, and arts strategy to bring everyone to Northwest Indiana to consume art in Porter County and in Lake County. We bring Spiro in as well to look at our art. They have to come through here because we're at the crossroads, right? We've got the Borman Expressway. Hundreds of thousands of people travel down that thing every day. How do we get them off the road to Munster, South Shore, to see symphony, to see art? How do we get them off the road to the Lake County Convention and Visitors Bureau, to Indiana Dunes? How do we get them off the road to consume our art? They have to come through here. How do we get them to exit?
So from what we do, that's what our job is we do the marketing, and we make sure that they understand what we have available. So we have it on our website, we have it in our publications, we do have sections specifically on our art. So that's part of it, is just the overall awareness. One of the things, there is a tourism analogy to this whole thing. The state of Michigan, you know, we're in the height of the recession. The state of Michigan is not doing so well economically, and yet their legislature gave them $30 million to promote tourism. Why? Because they saw it not as an expense, but as an investment in their state, and it's paid off significantly with Pure Michigan. That's what they need to start looking at in terms of the arts. It is truly not an expense. It's an investment into children's lives. It's an investment into our communities. And when we start to shift our thinking in terms of this, I think you're going to see the difference. But if we think it's an expense that can be cut from a budget, that's going to happen. But if we look at it as an investment, I think that's where you'll see the money coming forward.
It's the one thing I think that, well, of course Chicago, but it's the one thing that I think that Northwest Indiana has a lot of other communities beat on is great art. John Kane, Libby Chu, they're getting that message out. The visitors bureaus, you pull over maybe just to get a drink of water and to rest for a moment, but you can see art in those visitors bureaus. So I'm wondering in this last minute or so that we have, is there a way to put this into hyperspace where we say, Northwest Indiana, let's put it all together and show the world that this is the place for high art? 15 seconds, John Kane. How do we do that?
I think it's I like your challenge for us, and I think it's a great idea. It's something we could work on.
Yeah.
The most recent quality of life indicators report from one region suggested that our region needs a strategic cultural plan.
Yeah, and if we have a strategic cultural plan, Micah Pollock, we're going to increase our, what is it again?
Gross metropolitan product.
That can happen.
We'll have more people moving here, more people visiting here. They'll
Yeah.
spend their money here, and that'll help all businesses, whether you appreciate the arts or not.
Yeah. And the more people we can get off that expressway, Lorelei.
That's more money new money we're importing into our communities.
Oh man, I thank you three for being on. Counterpoint, I really appreciate you. You know what? I want to say arts funding, and more arts funding. A better way of life starts with art, and we must fight to keep it in our lives. Stay positive, keep your head up, and always be encouraged to voice your counterpoint. Have a great week.